Cool, it's been recorded. You'll notice that I'm actually putting up the recording of the morning session, the Southern Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere. So both of them are available there. I actually haven't taken any of them down. But I've gone and divided Facebook up into what these things are called units that they have there now, which means that it's much easier to go and find content around the assignment and the videos, both videos. So each cohort will have, each unit will have the cohort, the assignment, and the 2 videos as soon as the videos are ready. Yeah, so that's that. Twitter and LinkedIn. Feel free to tweet, screen cap, whatever. I saw a few go, or I saw one go out today that did that. Quite happy for that to happen because it'll mean that next year when I run the 90-day mentoring challenge, people can subscribe and get it on it quickly. We doubled the numbers from last year, so let's see if we can double the numbers again this year. Keep mics mute, except for when we go to Q&A. On Q&A, can you please unmute and kind of first in, first served around answering or asking your questions there. Please use chat. Talk to each other. If I say something that's you disagree or agree with, or you've got more evidence around it, you want to add to it, make sure you chuck it in the chat window. I'm not really going to see it, but each other, you know, will see it. And so get engaged there. Next thing, keep an eye on the Facebook group. Can someone just flick over there now quickly? Just check that nobody's trying to get in here and just needs a helping hand to get across here. Recordings will be posted in 12 hours. Well, I lie. I've actually put this morning's recording up already, as well as the assignment. So one lot of recordings are up. This one will be posted probably before I go to bed tonight. So it'll be up there as well. Please complete the metrics that matter. Please, please, please. It's the kind of solid feedback. I love some of the comments last week. Thank you very much. Very cool to see I'm on point. This week was the first time I got feedback around extra content, and the request was in the Facebook group, how do you incorporate humor into your day-to-day role as a consultant? So I am open to ideas on this, so chuck it into the Facebook group. If you've got ideas of injecting humor into an engagement while you're working on projects and stuff like that, kind of what can you do that you found stimulates humor, fun, excitement? That's not alcohol. And finally, Facebook engagement for assignments. This week, your assignment involves you actually doing a video. Like, it's a must to do a video this week. Halfway through, video assessment is already in the assignment section. So I am looking forward to the videos that are coming through. I've loved the ones that have come through so far. They've been totally awesome. Anyhow, without further ado, let's get underway with a photo of my shoes. Now, this is not a photo of my shoes, but I feel it looks like my shoes. And we're going to talk about technology and, if you like, the confusion now around what technology to focus on because there's so many technologies. When I started my career in the space, I was a customer. I was working for a training company, and I was given the task of assessing and deciding on a new method of, 1, running our training establishment, and 2, managing the students, customers, trainers. It was a big training center. So 12 classrooms doing adult education, pretty much 6 days a week, as well as evening classes. So it was pretty full on. We had it was a multi-million-dollar business that we were doing this in. But I looked at all the products in the market, and I found one product that gave me these 3 things: sales, customer service, and marketing. And it was CRM 1.2. And crazily, even though everyone was like, wow, you had to work with that? Well, I fell in love with the technology as part of us implementing it within our organization. In fact, the 2 of us that jointly implemented this together, one of them has gone on. He now owns his own company in the dynamic space. And of course, I've built my career out in the space as well. So for whatever reason, I don't know why it resonated at the time. It might have been because we're coming off kind of like a 2-tone screen and only keyboard input, that it was such a massive change to be able to go to a graphical interface and use a mouse with our software. But I fell in love with the technology. Now, I only had to learn three things or three modules: sales, customer service, and marketing. And the beauty is Microsoft didn't release, or only released the product really about once every 3 years. So you can imagine if you studied and learned and found out the best way of operating these three modules inside of Microsoft CRM, that's what it was called at the time, or MS CRM, you got kind of 3 years of benefit out of it. And so when I transitioned on from that job and decided to set up my own business in it, you could see that the time spent on learning the technology was well worth it, because it paid off in project after project after project. It was easy back then to be a guru when there was only these three modules that you needed to know. But now it is way more, or way confusing. So we still have those three: sales, customer service, and marketing. But it feels like the landscape that we're on is totally changing. It's never the same. Even in the last couple of weeks, we've heard about new stuff that Microsoft is bringing out. And of course, we now have Field Service as a first-party app, Project Service Automation, Business Central, the whole finance and operations side of it that, of course, was around with AX and NAV, SL, those other type products. But now we really have these core financial type applications. We've got retail, a whole application suite around retail that Microsoft has bought out. We have talent, of course, for the whole HR side of things. And once again, it's another whole product set to learn. We've got in the mixed reality area layouts, which is basically laying out environments digitally before you actually build them, getting a feel of how something would work from a low-cost digital perspective, kind of like in the old days where you would build a model of a very fancy building you're going to build. Now you could use layouts to kind of suss out how does it feel and look. Then you've got remote assist, of course. And, remote assist connected with field service as well is opening up whole new scenarios of how work is done in remote locations, and when skill sets are thin and costly to transport around the world. Whoops, wrong button. And then we've got Product Visualize, which since last year doing this, that's a new product in there. And of course, guides. And guides are going to open up a brand new world of possibilities around people's ability to learn. If you have seen some of the latest videos on it, as well as Product Visualize, it's worth looking at, because I think these two products are really going to affect or grow, if you like, the mixed reality space. So you think, 2 years ago, we never had anything in mixed reality. We didn't have layouts, remote assist, guides, or Product Visualize. Now we've got these 4 new applications to work with. But that's all the kind of first-party applications that Microsoft now have, right? But then we add in social engagement, portals, Forms Pro, that could have done with an S on the end, gamification, unified service desk, LinkedIn. What else do we have? Customer insights, sales insights, market insights, and customer service insights. Not only that, we now have fraud protection, just came out earlier this year, and we also have virtual agent for customer service just announced. So as you can see, these 2 second lines are really going into, totally new scenarios. The fraud protection you're going to come across more in the, I suppose, retail sector, and it's about detecting fraud in transactions. But this is the landscape that you now have to work with. So what do you do? Because if you notice in all this, I've kind of missed 3 really important bits of technology. And there they are. Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow, which are kind of what CDS is overlaid with. So what do you learn? What do you focus on now from a career perspective when there's so much to work with or to understand? And the thing is, I don't think it's possible anymore to be like I started my career, just focused on sales, customer service, and marketing. What was that core CRM type application? So this is a challenge you're kind of faced with. So let's just go on a bit of a journey. How did we get here and kind of where are we going, if you like? So in 2001, you see a company called iCommunicate, iCommunicate.net specifically, was a company kind of like a .com type company. And they started developing an application for CRM. And they got acquired by Microsoft. And so Microsoft purchased them and their staff. And out of that grew the very first version, CRM 1.0, was part of that acquisition. And that came out, you can see, in 2003. It was early 2003 that CRM 1.0 came out. And then by the end of that year, about November-ish, CRM 1.2 came out. And that was the first product that I saw and acquired from Microsoft. There was only a short release cycle. There were some rumors that, there was some underlying problems with CRM 1.0, is why 1.2 was released very quickly. And then we jumped straight to Dynamics CRM 3.0 in 2005. The reason 2 didn't exist or doesn't exist and never existed, I mean, I understand it was in development, but there was a feeling in the market that it wasn't feature-rich enough or different enough from CRM 1.2, and hence it didn't come to market. But Dynamics CRM 3 was released in 2005. So you can see 3, 4, 5, this kind of gap, between release cycles. Then in 2007, towards the end of it, we saw Dynamics CRM 4.0 come to market. And, by that time, Dynamics was really starting to gather some traction. And in 2010, Dynamics CRM 2011 was released. And it was this version that went online from Microsoft. Now, what was happening across here? So notice that in 2005, the name Dynamics came about. It didn't exist before that point. And this was Microsoft's way of kind of unifying under a single brand the various business applications. So you had products called Solomon, Exapta, Navision, and Great Plains were the products in market. And what Microsoft released was Dynamics CRM, Dynamics AX, Dynamics NAV, Dynamics SL, and Dynamics GP. And they created this kind of one moniker from these acquisitions that they had carried out in market. And of course, you can see at the top there, that was the time that the Dynamics logo, the 3 sails, the yellow, blue, greenish type sails came into effect. And that was the brand or the logo that was used for Dynamics. Then if we move forward right up to today, we have Microsoft Business Applications. So fast becoming a suite of applications. In 2013, you saw Dynamics CRM 2013 was released. So they got the year and the name right that time. But in 2014, they released 2015. And in 2015, they released 2016. And 2017, they released Dynamics 365. And it's at this point that Microsoft did a major pivot in how they were thinking about their suite of applications. If you take a look here, you can see the logo transitions through this period. It becomes just the white detailed logo. Then this temporary logo was predominantly used in the mobile apps, didn't hang around for long, and was replaced with the D that we have for Dynamics 365. So that was kind of the journey we went on. And, in that purple area that we have to the right-hand end is now, and now we almost would need to break down into 3 to 6 monthly increments, because we have had this hockey stick of things start to happen inside Microsoft Business Applications. One of the big things that happened in the now space is that the senior leadership was changed within Microsoft. So the senior vice president, James Phillips, came into role about 18 months to 2 years ago after his massive success in Power BI. He took Power BI from nothing and turned it into a massive line of business. It became the world leader reporting and analytics app, beating out Tabula, I think. Anyone want to comment in the comments what it is? What do they beat? What's the one that Salesforce have just purchased? Anyone want to chuck in the name? There it is, Tabula. It was. And so, yeah. So he was massively successful there, and of course got asked to go, okay, come on and take over the Microsoft Business Application Unit. At that point, prior to that, there were a bunch of different senior people in roles that kind of had all their own little fiefdoms. So whether it was in the ERP area or the CRM area, and they were very, product-centric rather than customer-centric. And what I mean by that is that they focused on adding value to their little segment without looking at what was the wider Microsoft about. And of course, over this transition and journey that happened is Satya took his role as well, 5 years ago. And so this transition started to have a massive, massive impact. And with James Phillips coming into role, he was given kind of the mandate of taking everything, all the ERP, all the CRM. And if you've noticed recently, he's collecting in many different Office 365 applications into his sphere of influence as well. And the thing is, I think he's getting it because he's been so successful. The company has gone through phenomenal growth and kind of dealt with a lot of the perhaps not best decisions that were made on this journey. So if we have a look, just before 2012, Microsoft purchased Yammer, and that was to compete against Chatter from Salesforce at the time, which was just a big thing. You couldn't win a deal if you didn't have something to compete against Chatter. Now I never even hear about Chatter. They also bought a product that was going to transform marketing called Marketing Pilot. I have died many deaths on this product, training it for Microsoft, attempting to implement it. It was a dog of a product that they thought was going to change the world, but of course it didn't. I always felt like the product had been built by a husband and wife team. The wife was creative. She was out doing the marketing, and the husband was a hardcore dev that hated anything got to do with user interface design or user experience. It was a horrible, horrible application to work with, let me tell you. Then they also in 2013 bought a product called NetBreeze, and I can remember this product being announced. In fact, if you drill into the dregs of my website, you will see there's about 3 different posts dedicated to NetBreeze, because the minute it was announced, you couldn't get to their website anymore. So I went and jumped on the Wayback Machine and harvested all their API procedures, etc., that was on the Wayback Machine, because Microsoft had taken it offline straight away. And so for years, nobody thought they could actually via API access NetBreeze, but I successfully did it with my team in Australia many times because of having this old code base that was still open and still available, even when they moved it across to O365 based or Azure based authentication. So that was NetBreeze, and that was going to solve all the social gaps, if you like, in Dynamics. And once again, Salesforce had this product. Man, I can't even remember what it was now in the social space. But what happened is that through this period, the Microsoft product team for CRM particularly had this habit of acquiring anything to kind of try and compete against Salesforce. It was definitely not on parity feature-wise. And so they acquired all these applications. Probably, who knows what the motives were for all of them or what drove those decisions. In 2014, probably the best acquisition of the whole lot here was a company called Parature. And the beauty of Parature, it had over 10 million active customers as in using the technology. So let's say it was 10,000 companies, but of those they had 10 million odd customers interfacing with it. And it was really a sophisticated case help knowledge management system that was designed for the gaming community. And like so often, gaming has driven a lot of growth in technology. And so they did this right. What they did is they took it on with no intention of developing that product any further. They just extracted the IP and put it into the customer service module of Dynamics, which was fantastic. Totally positive move, and has turned the customer service module into really enterprise-grade quality tool in market. In 2015, a company was purchased called Mojo Software. Who's going to be first in the chat to say what this product got renamed to inside Dynamics? Voice of the customer, Ryan, mate. Megan, he bet you. I'm surprised. But anyhow, nailed it. But of course, who cares about voice of the customer? Because it's pretty much dead now. The Forms Pro Queen, currently on the call, now owns this space and totally taken it over. So once again, an acquisition of, I don't know, why didn't they just build Microsoft Forms to start with, which you see came on the Office 365 side of the house, where the Form Pros were seeing be moving to CDS. Another cool acquisition at this time was ADX Studio, owned by, or primary owner was a guy called Shan MacArthur, who's still on the product team. Shan was also an MVP at the time, and he was a very vocal MVP. Used to hold, his favorite thing about holding Microsoft to task was on polymorphic relations, or the lack thereof within the technology. But ADX Studio was, designed to address the portal deficiency within the application, and customers saying, hey, we need customers to be able to interact with some of the data that is sitting in our CRM system. Also purchased at this time was a product called Incent Games. Does anyone know what that became? What did Incent Games become? Gamification. There you go, Ryan, mate. Studied up, mate. You want to be in my pub quiz team that I'm running in Orlando. I've got a pub quiz going at that event. It's been accepted, and you're the type of person I'd want on my team at that type of speed reaction. But yeah, gamification. Has anyone implemented gamification? Chuck it in the chat if you've implemented gamification at any time. Wow. Okay. I've looked at it. That's about it. So not much experience from me, and I don't even know, is it still alive? Can you still use it in a 9X environment? Any takers for a 9X environment? Yes, agreed. Okay, so that was another acquisition. And then the last one was Field One. Once again, a good acquisition in this case. It's interesting, Field One probably got acquired more for the successes that it had at getting customers on board quickly. The strength of Field One was a couple of things. Its entire app, of course, was what we already have in place, but also the portal software used was ADX Studio. So Microsoft, as you saw, acquired ADX and Field One in the same year, and it really kind of came together as a whole bunch of tooling needed to be brought together. There was even some smarts around the engine around scheduling that was done by a German company. And it was interesting is that the German software developer was also an MVP called Carson. And then a couple of weeks later, he becomes a blue badge with Microsoft. So some interesting transitions happened through this period. But of course, the big one in 2017 was the LinkedIn acquisition. And, you know, a lot of people thought we would see a lot more from LinkedIn within Dynamics. I think that the Power Apps component framework is really going to allow LinkedIn to come into its full play within Dynamics. But I tell you what, if you've used LinkedIn Navigator, Sales Navigator with Dynamics, and you're actually working on customer records and data and things like that, it is amazing. It is so helpful. You know, one simple thing I use it is every time somebody signs up for the 90-day mentoring challenge, off my website, I have got a WordPress plugin that automatically puts that data directly into my Dynamics 365 tenant. It goes in as a lead. The minute I pop that lead, goes Sales Navigator, and just based on their first name, last name, and I don't know if what else, do I care about email address? It spits out and goes, here's the person we found on LinkedIn. So I get to see their face, see what they're like, kind of bit of history before I even start the, you know, going through the kind of onboarding process into the 90-day mentoring challenge. And of course, the final thing here is this is where we are now. Massive change, massive work on you, as in your responsibility is to decide where you're going to sit now in this landscape of where things are at. So part of our history in coming here is a term called XRM, which stood for Anything Relationship Management. And so people started pretty early on. And in fact, you know, the first time, like I took Dynamics in the first, MS CRM, and I built a, what was it? A training center system on it. So it wasn't even, it was managing classrooms and instructors and training schedules and training technologies and courseware and students. And so, yeah, customers were in the mix as well. But pretty quickly, we were pivoting and turning it into something else. And what I've got building on screen here, all the different types of things that you could build in that XRM story. You're bound to have seen the video on YouTube. In fact, I've got a blog post coming out in the next day or so where I linked to this video called Anything XRM. And Microsoft actually coined the phrase XRM. And no sooner had it coined it than it started to backtrack from it. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? Are we an apps company? In other words, we just build apps and people can use by our app, so a CRM system or a marketing system or a customer service system, or are we a company that provides a platform? And there was a lot of infighting around, we have a platform. It is, you know, .NET. It's our developer platform, and you should be using that, and everything should be, you know, or SharePoint. We've got SharePoint. Why are we introducing? And at the time, apparently, even Bill Gates was like, why are we introducing a new, or saying we have another platform and technology? So there was a lot of competing and infighting, if you like, within Microsoft. And the old Microsoft used to be every team for themselves. They used to compete, fight against each other. And basically the philosophy was the last team standing is the winner. they would get the more budget, they would be able to move forward. Didn't matter if they're the best technology, it's whether they won in the internal fights. And there's cartoons and stuff out there showing how Microsoft's way of leading was everybody held a gun to every other employee in the business to get their own way. Which was, it wasn't taking Microsoft in the right direction until Satya came in and totally turned that business around. And so part of that journey we've been on, and this is a graphic from a couple of years ago, around 2017, is you saw Microsoft brought ERP and CRM together. And so why did they do this? I'll tell you the official line of why they did this, and then I'll tell you the sideline, what I think was partly the contribution to it. So the official line from Microsoft is basically said, we don't need silos within organizations. By creating CRM systems and ERP systems, what we're doing is creating siloed data where companies and corporations and things want a kind of a view of the data in a single view or a single pane of glass type of experience. They don't want all these disparate or siloed systems across the organization. So it said, let's get rid of the word ERP, let's get rid of the CRM and bring it together, and we'll call it Microsoft Dynamics 365. And of course, on Dynamics 365, where there's what are called first-party apps: marketing, service, sales, operations, finance, and talent. Now, for all of those in the space, consulting in the space, there was the whole, oh my gosh, how do they know that I'm talking about CRM when now AX is called operations or finance and operations? This is just confusing people. And now for us on the inside, yes, it was confusing, but this was Microsoft's vision. So part of that story was this: data needed to be in a centralized repository, and then intelligent information could be fed back from that. And I'll go in and see how the story is expanded. One of the other parts of this was modern, unified, intelligent, and adaptable. And what they're trying to do is create a seamless user experience that everybody that worked with the technology would have. So you wouldn't have to keep relearning between finance and operations and CE. We're still on that journey. And of course, underpinning all this came to market Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI. Now, the massive success of Power BI, as you know, Power Apps was a behind-the-scenes Project Sienna is what it was originally called, kind of launched off along this journey. And then Microsoft Flow was also part of this development that came out of the Azure team with Logic Apps. And so this is kind of what Microsoft built out. Now, here's my sideline of what I really think why they lost the name. Who's the #1 ERP system in the world? SAP. Who's the #1 CRM system in the world? No contenders. Salesforce. So what happened is that if you can't win in a category, if you can't win at a game, change the game. Basically, create new rules, create new parameters, and win at the new game. And that's what I think partly what Microsoft did here was said, listen, there's no way, Salesforce had a 9-year head start on CRM. That's too much ground, if you like, to make up to a company that's just dedicated to one product. And so by switching away and going, what CRM, like maybe CRM is dead, long live Dynamics 365, what they did was kind of throw that kind of, if you like, they threw the market away from just going out and finding a CRM. Also, CRMs have got a lot of baggage associated with them over times. A lot of failed projects, change management, never done well, and of course, salespeople that kind of maybe, let's say, oversold or valued the technology in their customers' mind way more than what was reality. I've probably been guilty of that. Okay, now we move into the Power Platform. And so the Power Platform was these 3 core tenets: Power Apps, Power BI, Microsoft Flow. But here's the key difference that happened in the last 24 months. Up to this point, Dynamics, and basically what we now have as CDS, or the underpinning of the whole Dynamics suite of products, was always built on SQL Azure. Sorry, it wasn't. It was always built on SQL. And so what happened is that at this point, even though it was running, the CRM Online was running in Microsoft data centers that also hosted Azure, it wasn't hosted on Azure. It was run independently of Azure. So at this point, what they decided to do was abstract the first-party apps away from the platform below it and allow the platform to stand alone and be developed independently of first-party apps, like anything that has the word Dynamics in it. And so as part of this, they moved from SQL to Azure SQL. So SQL Azure is where basically the entire database set. Now, just in the last couple of months, we've seen additional transitions now where Azure Data Lake V2 has come into play. We're now seeing Cosmos DB. We're now seeing, you know, SQL Azure is still in there for structured data. And then unstructured, we've got blob storage. And so basically all these new modern storage techniques had come into the world, and Dynamics and CRM weren't using them. And so by making this transition, it meant now we have a underpinning platform that can take advantage of any new technology that comes to market without affecting the, if you like, the presentation layer or the business logic layer of the application. So added to this, Dynamics 365 apps could then sit on top of it because they had originally come from there and really just got torn off it. Office 365 started to also be built now on this underlying area. So CDS, the kind of the biggest visual indicator of this would be Forms Pro. It was something that sat in the Office suite of products, which has now been ported to run in CDS. The other one, SharePoint, right? A lot of people were building Power Apps, so using SharePoint backends for their Power App builds. And now we've seen that course come along where, you know, you have the choice, but, you know, for advanced app development, you're going to be building on CDS rather than on SharePoint lists. And then the ability for anybody to build a standalone app. So with this kind of technology structure that Microsoft's put in play, anybody can come along and build an app with the same level of sophistication as any Dynamics 365 app. Why? Because of the Common Data Service. Now, notice that this is an old slide. I left it here on purpose because it used to be only 2 years ago, Common Data Service for apps, which we're now just calling it the Common Data Service. And of course, it has the data connectors, which, you know, are associated with Flow. So this is kind of updates us or brings us up to this point of, well, about 9 months ago. Because 9 months ago, no, it's just a year ago actually, at the last Business App Summit, so the one just before this term Power Platform was first coined. So it's actually, although people are saying it's been around for ages, I just saw someone the other day say, I've got 2.5 years experience on the Power Platform. And I was like, do you? Yeah, kind of, because it's a transition, but you know, the word Power Platform was only coined at Biz App Summit, not the one just gone, but the one before. And James Phillips coined the phrase, marketing didn't sanction it, like marketing hadn't proved it, but it kind of stuck. I mean, even, you know, 12 months ago, you had to call it Power, lowercase p for platform, because this whole platform issue within the wider Microsoft was still a thing. Well, it's all gone now. You know, it is the Power Platform. So if you want to look at the latest version of how Microsoft looks at it, it is like this. Is that there's really 4 groups or data sets that any organization will be involved in. They are people, they are customers, their products, and their operations. And a company wants this data or collects this data in ever-increasing amounts. But the key thing out of that data is it needs intelligence. It needs intelligence to make informed business decisions, to make the right decisions from these data sets. Part of that then is this kind of what they call the feedback loop, the digital feedback loop. So as you get data in, you get intelligence out, and you can take better or more proactive action. And that's why it's important to understand this vision that sits now behind all the technology Microsoft is doing. If we look at it for all the other 3 here, whether it be people, operations, we see it's around transformation of products, empowering people, and optimizing operations. So if we look in the product area, we've seen, for example, IoT come out and products become intelligent and connected straight into the data set. When it comes to empowering employees, from full life cycle management of hiring through to training, through to promotion and career development, now fed within the application, but also this need to kind of get a lot more value and productivity from what you do. And then, you know, optimizing operations is another key element. How can efficiencies be gained as we collect this data in? We can start running algorithms and understanding what it's all about and how it, you know, comes together. So Microsoft's turned it into a quadcopter, flying off into the sky in the last release of it. And here is the breakdown of kind of what sits under it from a data perspective. So first we have the data being collected. That's all now going into an Azure-based environment. And now, of course, I'm not talking about on-prem at all. But then in Azure, on top of Azure, sits a Power Platform. And really, it's important to understand at this level of the Power Platform here, anybody can build apps with the same level of sophistication as Office 365 and Dynamics 365. If you don't believe me, take a listen to Steve Mordu's podcast with Hayden Stafford. Now, Hayden Stafford is the Senior Vice President of Global Sales for Microsoft Business Applications. And he said on that podcast that he was fearful, they are fearful that another company will come along, take the Power Platform and build a better sales app or a better customer service app or a better marketing app because the technology is getting that good. And so hence why I talk about Dynamics 365 is dead, because you don't really need to start with Dynamics anymore. You need to come one level down and start with a Power Platform and build apps out from that level. Oops, carrying on up, we then have AppSource, which of course ISV products can be built on top of Dynamics 365, but they can also be built directly on the Power Platform. Now, added to this rich set of data that you might build and gather via the apps that we implement, underneath it is these three technologies. So Bing, LinkedIn, and the Office Graph. Now, Microsoft love putting Bing on things. Now, Bing's a big deal in America. It's I'm pretty sure it's $1 billion business. It's not so well known in other parts of the world, in my experience, but they're using a lot of Bing data now to feed intelligence into the system. So forget about search. Think about all the telemetry data that's not just coming from Bing, but coming from the Internet Explorer browser or the Edge browsers. That data is being fed in and allowing more insights to be gathered. LinkedIn acquisition was a massive game changer, if you like. They had people on stage from Grant Thornton at the recent BizApp Summit saying how the more connected on LinkedIn their salespeople are, they've correlated a direct result to the increase in sales that have been made by using LinkedIn with their CRM environment. And then the Office Graph, of course, looks at the telemetry data of all the Microsoft software that we use every day, whether it's PowerPoint, Word, Outlook, etc., and is feeding in kind of, are you spending most times in productive meetings or internal meetings, or you spend 2 hours a day on email? It kind of gives you that feedback, the Office Graph, to know exactly what you're doing. But what I find most beneficial is that, like for an example, in the sales app, when you send an email to somebody and somebody clicks and opens that email, it's feeding that back via Exchange, which is connected to the Office Graph, which gives us insight into how healthy our relationship is with that customer. So that is the kind of the business story behind the technology that we're dealing with now, and how it all comes into place as a digital feedback loop. Right, so that brings us to your decision. So your decision is, what technology are you going to focus on? And I want to give you this example of a surgeon. Would you want a brain surgeon to operate on your heart? Or would you want a heart surgeon to operate on your brain? I would suggest no. Would you want a brain surgeon to operate on your smashed knee or any other bone? No, you want an orthopedic surgeon to do that. The thing is, the last 2 years, Microsoft, when they brought these two products together, said, hey, as consultants, you need to know everything. You need to know both of them. And the thing is, I'd rather have a specialist than a jack of all trades. And what it's done, though, is created for a lot of people confusion around what you should focus on. But you need to choose. You need to be a specialist in one area, but broadly knowledgeable across a range of areas. And this is what's often referred to as a T consultant or a T-skilled person. So you need to think, what of the technologies we've talked about are you going to go deep in? But what are you going to have enough broadness in to make sure you know all the other areas? I like using Ulrich, MVP from San Francisco, I think he's based, and he became known as a CRM chart guy. And so he went deep into charts. He became a guru on charts. He knew how to color them, make new ones, alter the fetch XML in simple ways, and he blogged and he talked about it, and he just became the expert on anything charts. Did he still know about Dynamics and and Now Flow and Power BI? Absolutely he does. But he built his depth of knowledge around one segment within Dynamics 365, and that was charts. He's expanded it, of course, into Power BI as time has gone on. But my suggestion to you is that you need to get strong in one thing and really master it. and then still, while still having kind of a broad experience or understanding of other technologies. And only you can decide that for yourself. So let's look again at the landscape. Let's jump these all on screen and ask yourself, what are you going to go deep on? What are you going to be the guru or the expert on in all these product areas? And what are you going to be a generalist on? And of course, forget the underpinning technology there. You need to kind of get to that point where you know what this is for you. Now, about a month or so ago, I had a mentee from the Ukraine come to London on holiday with his wife, and he asked to meet up with me. It was on my program last year, the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, and he asked to meet me, and he met me in a cafe in King's Cross, and we had a discussion because one thing was troubling him after doing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge in 2018, and that was this. He was like, some of the, like, I don't want to know all these technologies. He said, some of them, he said, and he picked out specifically unified service desk. He goes, I hate it. I don't like it. And I'm like, I agree. I've worked on plenty of projects with it, and it's a bit clunky. It's built on 10-year-old technology underneath, and I agree. And he goes, well, do I have to, learn it if I'm going to stay as a consultant in this area? And I was like, absolutely not. He said, well, how do I decide what is the best one? What one should I back and become a guru on? I said, it's very simple. It's like this. Grab yourself some Post-it notes. Take the name of each one of those and write it on a Post-it note. Lay the Post-it note out on the table in front of you, and then take every Post-it note with a name on it of stuff you don't like. If you don't like field service, take it off. If you don't like project service automation, doesn't spin your wheels, take it off. Business Central's not you, take it off your list. Go through all these and remove everything you don't want or don't like, or just it doesn't turn you on, so to speak. Put those in the bin. You'll be left on the table with the areas that kind of interest you and you find helpful, right? What I then said, he was like, okay, so that's fine. I've now, I've got my list. How do I know which one to back? Like which one? Because I could do any of these. I said, it's quite simple. And it's a very simple formula to address this. I said, you close your eyes, you take your finger and you point. And whichever one your finger's touching, that's the one you should specialize in. He was like, but what if that's not the right one? I said, it will be the right one. If you specialize on it, this technology from Microsoft is not going away anytime soon. It's only growing. So if you've chosen one of the areas that you really like and you want to go deep in it, go deep in it. Stop trying to be a jack of all trades and master none. Become known for one area of technology, get really skilled in that, and you'll never want for work in your life because people will seek you out for your skill set. When I started my first company, in the first year of running a business, I entered a local business or Chamber of Commerce awards, and that meant I get judged. So judges came around to my company and they said, do you only just do Microsoft software? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, and you only do Dynamics? And I was like, yeah, that's all we do. And he was like, man, that's crazy. Like the risk is, what happens if Microsoft doesn't carry on with Dynamics? And what happens if, if Microsoft as a company falls over? And I was like, mate, their GDP is higher than all of that of New Zealand. So do not worry about such things. But he was like saying, I should diversify. And what I did was focus. Now, I have never regretted that decision for focusing on a single technology, in this case, CRM. I was never interested in any of the ERP type applications. And I tell you, it set me up for a great career. So I'm suggesting you do the same. Just choose one, go deep in it, commit to it for 3 years. If at the end of 3 years, you see Microsoft starting to pivot or a new area of technology takes your fancy, pivot straight into it. I often consult people that are going to be employed by Microsoft. And I say, listen, when you get into a role in Microsoft and take that job, don't think that's your job forever in Microsoft. Look out once you're inside there and pivot as quickly as you can into something that's more aligned with where you want to go as an individual. But the thing is, you need to commit to one technology and get good and get a guru, become a guru in that one technology, and then you can move to others as time goes on. Do you need to know Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow? 100%. They're underpinning technologies of everything we do. So I'm not saying you need to be a guru on all three, but you need to really, really understand them, how to apply them, how to use them, have a lot of functional expertise. You need to understand CDS. Creating data models and understanding the common data model is extremely, extremely important. Now, to cap this all off, we have AI Builder. Now, isn't that awesome? Now, Microsoft's introduced another whole round of technologies to get up to speed on to know. This one excites me the most. I've spent this year learning about AI. I've read about 5 books. I've got 2 on the go now just about AI and where all the scientific research is at, not just the marketing research. This stuff excites me because it's really taking the entire Power Platform into an area that's going to provide tremendous value back to businesses. Now, that's all the Microsoft Biz App stuff. Then you got Azure, right? So you got to think of what Azure services, whether it's cognitive service, the machine learning functionality, stream analytics, or event hubs. They all now become part of the world we move in. So, you know, learning, going more advanced in artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, and of course, cognitive services. So I bet you're wondering, like, okay, so what do I do? Well, I like this quote from Stephen Covey. If the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step you take just gets you to the wrong place faster. So I'm not saying that there's no wrong decision, but you've got to think about, where do you want to go? Where's your ultimate end goal? What steps do you need to take? And therefore, is the technology you're choosing, etc., going to be the right thing for you? Now, I wanted to leave you with some resource at the back end of this. And so I've, let me just hit the play on my video here. Just a little screencast of this webpage on my website, which I've put in the assignment, it has links, and Megan can to attest to this, because when she went and tried the links, they weren't working that day, but not because of my site, Megan. It was because of Microsoft sites were down, or EDX. But right now on screen, on MB200, you got a whole bunch of EDX courses. For whatever reason, Microsoft hasn't made this easy for you to find. So if you go here, these courses equates to over 50 hours, around 48, but people that have actually gone through it has said it's way more excessive than the actual time to take. If you want to get up to speed, I've got all the other like certifications and courses that you can take. I keep this page up to date as much as possible, so use that as a starting point to decide or to start skilling yourself on the various technologies. It's at nz365guy.com/exams. That URL's been up there for about 5 years now. Every time there's a new batch of training material, etc., I keep it updated. Now, mic's off, it's question time.
So I have a question. This is Beth.
Hey, Beth.
You know, I try to stay abreast of a lot of the technology. As you know, it's moving like a freight train.
Yeah.
Customers are very adverse to the change. People who've been using CRM are having a hard time grasping the change in direction. I find myself continuously trying to show examples of, you know, CDS and Power Apps and trying to explain to them, you know, how the applications work. Do you have any suggestions? Or, you know, customers are, you know, as you know, adverse to change, right? So do you have any suggestions or pages or something that help better explain to customers why they need to move forward?
So
that Microsoft told you to, right?
Yeah. So I think the biggest story that I have behind why move forward is the AI story. Is that you need to kind of be positioning your company for the competitive advantage you can have in the future with AI. And if you're not on a platform that has inherently got AI built into it and allows you to start training algorithms, machine learning type functions within it, you are aging. So I feel like right now, so many businesses are operating, they were operating 10 years, 15, 20, 30, 100 years ago. And their processes and the technology hasn't really changed. But now with digital transformation, all of a sudden, old ways of doing things can totally be done a different way using digital methods. Whether, you know, the traditional filling out of a form, a clipboard type form, was labor intensive. Someone had to pick up those forms. Someone had to enter that into a data system. Now that kind of all goes away. I mean, you know, that a digital equivalent of this, you can capture that information in the field and straight away analytics insights can be drawn from it. You'll never drill that from a book or, sorry, so when I say a book, a printed version of something, right? Because it takes somebody's eyeballs to make a decision around it, and you're not allowing kind of technology to work with it. But the other thing I would say with customers is this, is never show them more than what they can handle, because otherwise the technology looks complicated. I've done many, many demos, and as soon as I got from the audience that they were nodding and they were going with the technology, I would just cut my demo off. I would never try to carry on demoing stuff, because I'm always afraid of the more you demo, the more technical it seems. And people are lay people. They're not technologists necessarily, and they want to see that the systems and technology is real simple to use. So I'd say keep it simple and think about the AI future. And the biggest thing to explaining things like CDS, a CDM, data models, that type of thing, is you really, really got to understand it to a deep level yourself to then be able to tell other people. I find heaps of people at Microsoft don't know the difference between CDM and CDS even, because they haven't spent that time to really understand those differences. Beth, I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else?
Hey Mark, it's Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
So I think it's like a really good presentation. I've taken a lot from it, but where I struggle is, and I've spoken about this before, but my company is still in 2016 on-prem, as much as it pains me, and I'm the only CRM resource in a company of 800. So how can I focus on learning something new and developing that to meet my business needs while also carrying on with my BAU?
Yeah. So I read this really cool post from one of the executives at Google, something I get to do because my wife works at Google and she sends me these articles from their gurus from time to time. And in it, he said this: you should always be trying to spend 30% of your employed time on where you're going in your career, even if that's not prescribed to you from management. In other words, know where you want to go and then try and spend 30% of your time moving towards that. In other words, preparing for that and learning that way. Because either you will do it within the company you're in, or you'll become dissatisfied enough to go somewhere else. But you'll have developed the skills to be able to get that new job, that higher pay rise, that type of thing, if you've applied and learnt the new thing. Because as you say, you're in 2016, right? The world's massively moved on. And so if you went to market right now and said, I just have 2016 skills, a lot of companies are, of course, wanting latest technology type skills. So you need to kind of demonstrate that you've either undertaken learning, like that training material I was pointing to there, SAT certifications, etc., and had trial environments set up where you're trying these new things yourself. So think, how can you carve off 30% of your time to do BAU, but also invest into where your future's going? And make sure you tidy up that lawn at the back of your property.
Yeah, that's work in progress. I think that is really useful, and obviously, like, you know, I do set up trial environments, and I've got we're in the middle of moving to Dynamics 365, but yeah, there's always that, I guess, the stasis, and with being that only resource, I guess it's that daunting. You know, I was online before I came to this company, and I came to this company to move online, which was supposed to happen like a year and a half ago, and it's still in progress. So I guess the difficulty is getting buy-in from senior leadership.
Yeah.
So I can see the benefits of the platform. Obviously, I speak to a lot of people in this group and out with this group about what the platform is capable of doing, and I can think of so many utilization scenarios, but it's really difficult to get that executive buy-in.
Yeah. So have you thought of getting Microsoft involved with your executive, like for like? So if you got a CFO with for example, the country CFO for Microsoft, or country CEO with the CEO of your company, because that is often a great way when they see their peers, people just like them, are making these recommendations, can often help in moving decisions like that forward.
Yeah, trying. I think trying is the key word. We're getting there. It's just like the pace is a bit glacial.
Yeah, find another company. Anyone else?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you, Joe. What's up?
So obviously I started with Microsoft Flow because I have an automation background, and that's what was really interested me in the actual technology. But obviously that's a very small aspect I want to like now branch out and start learning something new. So to me, I was looking at Power Apps.
No
Do you
brainer.
think that's the next step for me?
No brainer. Absolutely. And as soon as you kind of mastered Power Apps, go straight onto Power BI, get that trifecta down, and then go for and then heavily go into the AI side of things.
Sounds awesome. Cheers, dude.
Hey, Mark, this is Seth. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Here's Seth.
Cool. Quick question. So one of the things that you talked about was the XRM story and just how, as a consultant, there's an industry aspect of this as well. And so while you may be deep in a specific area of the product, how does the industry play and industry knowledge go across that as well?
So, this session was totally around the technology, but industry I kind of put into SME area, like subject matter expertise around an industry. And once again, it comes down to, are you a technologist going into an industry, or are you an SME coming into the area of technology? Because I think that massively affects what you do. So for example, I've seen nurses and medical professionals transfer into technology and start representing medical-based apps because they come from that deep medical training type background, and so therefore they get it. They can see how the technology can transform, and they're really kind of like mavens out there. They're coming up with how the technology is going to transform or digitally transform their industry. I think if you're a technologist and then you're wanting to grow expertise as an SME in an industry, that really comes down to the number of jobs that you get in the same industry. So for example, if you're working for a consultancy and you only service law firms, you're going to pick up a lot of knowledge, and therefore you're going to develop a whole legal aspect of industry knowledge around the technology. So go that way if it spins your wheels, but it really depends on what your background. Did you come from a subject matter expertise and got into technology, right, or you're going the other way around? I think like, for example, I wouldn't go out tomorrow as somebody that's been a technologist all my life and turn around and go, right, the legal profession turns me on. Now I'm going to start getting in the intricacies of understanding this industry because I want to do all my projects for the rest of my life only in law. It's a hard one. I think a company, a corporation, or an SI these days, they need to verticalize. It's the only way to establish consistent, robust growth from a company perspective. But from a consultant perspective, I think it really
individual, yeah.
Background. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. That was a great description, depending on which direction you're coming from. And then also, it's the story of Brian, Mr. Dang, right?
Exactly.
So he's coming from, yeah.
From a teacher, right? Strong teaching background, builds Power Apps that are designed for classroom environments because he knows them inside out, and he understands the technology and goes, hey, I know how to apply this to my students, my classes, that type of thing. And of course, Microsoft snaps them up and says, hey, you can evangelize this across all the education system rather than just your one school. And that's the opportunity that comes out of things like that, right? It's probably only room for one, though. As in, like, if Microsoft's doing the hiring. Any other questions? 1 minute to go.
Hi, Mark. Yavar here. Can you hear me, please?
I can hear you, Yala. How are you? How's Melbourne today?
It's cold and early morning. It's good.
So sunny here. Got the window open. It's actually going on. Anyhow, tell us what can I help you with?
Mark, I have a question. I'm just want to ask, is something happening like Microsoft project? Is it going to be becoming part of Dynamics platform? Something like this is happening?
Okay, does anybody know the answer to that would know better? Anybody know? Okay, so there's massive changes happening. I don't know what I know that I can say about, but if you want to find out the guru or to ask this question to, who will give you straight answers every time, is a guy called Antti. Does anyone want to pronounce his last name? Patajera, something like that. He's from Helsinki.
Paginen.
Yeah,
I was going to say, not like that, Mark. I know that.
I know. But I even when he's on my podcast, I just say, yeah, I'm not even going to go there. But he's the one. Connect with him on Twitter and ask him those, like, private message him, ask him, and he would be able to tell you, because he's got very deep insight, because that's his specialist area. That's his kind of what he owns from a technology perspective. So hit him up and he would be able to tell you. I'm not deep enough in it, and then I do know some stuff, but I don't know whether I'm allowed to talk about that stuff or not.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, it looks like we are 9:01. That means it's time over, and my long day has come to an end. I can go and relax. Thank you, everybody. I'll get this recording up as soon as possible. See you all next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.